Live.
Hello.
This is Josh Show featuring Isaac Stackhouse and Stephen Aiken. Welcome everybody. Josh, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic.
Why did you hijack our show?
I don't know. I just showed up here. I got lost on the way to college.
It's kind of weird. Why would you be here at all, Josh? Tell the people if there was a reason that you'd be here. What would your
really just to harass Isaac about his background and how he gets to wake up to that every day.
Yeah, where are you from, Isaac?
Yeah, places. What's your background? I mean, a wandering thing. I'm on a beautiful beach, hypothetically on a green screen.
That's not green screen. People don't lie.
Hey, that's why I like to prove it, because see how good that technology's gotten with integrating the frizz in the hair.
That's hurting my eyes.
But welcome, Josh, to the show. Josh, you're from the Daily Triangle.
I am the Daily Triangle, but yes,
you are the Daily Triangle. So
one half of it.
Tell the people who you are. Tell people how you and I know each other. You can tell your side of the story. I used to wake up. My side of the story was I would wake up at 5:45 in the morning to drive 45 minutes to open up for you and one other guy to get your jiu-jitsu fix in, and it started this journey into jiu-jitsu for you.
Dude, man, yeah. Wow, it seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to start that far back, it was when I was in grad school there at Auburn University, and I'd just gotten out of the Marine Corps and was kind of looking for something to fill my time with besides school, and started there at Auburn Jiu-Jitsu just to give it a try, because I remember my time in the Marines. We do combatives and whatnot. And some of the guys I would wrestle with from the Naval Academy, I had a bunch of wrestlers in my first platoon, and they would just work me over. But I was in outstanding shape, and I'm like, how in the world are these guys, doing this? So when I got out, I was like, I'm gonna put a little more effort into mine. So that's where I met you, and because I was still kind of in Marine Corps mode, I'd wake up at 4 a.m. every morning, just kind of, and then you and I took off on our adventures there. And how long was that? 2 years? 3 years? No, it was long.
Yeah, that was, you were around for most of my blue, because I was end of my blue belt when I was doing the morning class, I believe.
Yeah, and you took a picture with me when I got my blue belt. So we were doing it together for it was 4 years, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Then after that, Uncle Sam moved us around again, and COVID happened, as we all know. And you and I were just talking one day, and I was, in my actual day job, I work as a ecologist and a scientist. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to find jiu-jitsu events, like competition seminars, yada, yada, yada. I kind of ran that idea by you, and you're like, yeah, I think there's a need for it. Next thing you know, one thing leads to another. Gained a little traction from that. Now I've, through you and your contacts and just kind of putting my stuff out there, met a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu world. We're a little bit past, growing it went from me just by myself with my laptop to now we're about to hit a year as an official company, as an LLC startup. And yeah, so that's where we are, and I'm just kind of glossing over a lot of the details there.
No, yeah, and you're talking about the Daily Triangle that is become the database for a lot of the. I know the seminar thing has taken off. I see things all the time with the seminars.
Yeah.
So and then the competitions, I've seen that for a long time. That having the seminars and having the announcements and where to be and all that, there's never been a communication hub that was great for that.
Yeah. So, I have my mission statement written up on my whiteboard, which is over here, that I do all my work off of in my office. And our North Star is to consolidate jiu-jitsu in a user-friendly, searchable platform in order to promote events and maximize participation. That's what we do, right?
God damn.
Yeah, so it's good.
Mission statement.
Yeah, so like, I mean, I've thought about that a lot, and you come back and you tweak it, and it's like, how can I, make this as succinct as possible to help everyone else kind of achieve their goals, right? Because I don't want to get too personal with it, but jiu-jitsu had a huge effect on me as far as like just my well-being. So I try and do everything I consider myself a really lucky guy, so I'm trying to do what I can to help everyone else out. And so what I started doing is I would just pull events from different entities, right? And then just put them all in one place. And that kickstarted everything else, where we do like seminar hosting now, to where I sold part of the company to a larger software conglomerate where we are now offering like investment opportunities with us. I've just been really fortunate to meet a lot of good people, including you guys. So it's just been sometimes a slow, frustrating role, because there's a lot of things and administrative things that you have to do to make sure you do it right. And I'm a very impatient person, and I'm one of those that's all gas or no gas. So when things don't move as fast as I want, I get really frustrated. But I know kind of at the end of the day when I go to sleep, like, hey, I'm doing everything right. I'm not, or at least trying to, right? I make mistakes just like anybody else, but not just throwing stuff out there to see what sticks. Like, there's strategy. There's lots of strategy in everything that goes on.
That's cool, man.
And so, Josh, you said you're an ecologist.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming.
Tell
me more. Tell me more.
Well, remember when we talked up in Alaska, when you guys called me in Alaska a while back?
This isn't your first time on the
this
show.
This isn't his first time on the show, right. But it's the first time.
But it's first
since
time
going this route.
Yeah. No, it was actually on your show, Steven. If you recall that I was kind of making these declarations of where I wanted to be. And because you were asking me, like, where do you see yourself? I remember that was one of your questions.
That was one of my things I was doing.
Yeah, and like some of those go, like, I think all of them. I think all of them. I was like, hit. So it's pretty cool.
I'm gonna fact check this guy here now, everybody. That's good though. That's good.
But what do you want to know about ecology? What not the ecological approach? Is that
right? Yeah, that's a joke at least. Is there any tie into what you've done in that?
Okay,
ecological dynamics, if you will.
So this is where we're going to go down a rabbit hole. So if we're ready to go down the rabbit hole,
favorite thing in my life.
Just kicking people down rabbit holes.
Ready? If you're not ready, it's okay. Just jump out whenever.
And I don't really know how to talk to this without like mentioning the big names in the ecological approach, which I assume is the Greg Saunders guy. Like, I don't want to just name drop people, but like he's the leader on it, is he not?
He's the most popular, I think, one that people
he's the loudest one on social media.
Mostly people talk about. I don't know either. So that's like he's the one that I've heard the most about in pop culture, I guess, for sure. But he's learning from other people. He would say other names, I think, if you asked him.
Sure. So I'm kind of out of practice, to be honest, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, because I've just been a little tied up and stuff. But the coach that I go to at 10th Planet Fredericksburg, Dustin Sansucci, he is all about eco rolls. So that was like my first exposure to it. And I guess, I had almost a year under my purple belt. So I had like a good baseline and like understanding what eco rolls were. And essentially what I like about it is their constraint focus part of it. My criticism comes from some of this gets very wordy and it's used to kind of fluff up what it is. But more or less, in my opinion, if you're asking an expert, and I have to say I'm an expert in ecology, I've done the work, I've done the time.
That's why I was,
like that's like, I mean,
that's what it's like. Literally, that's like what your focus is, and when
right.
You're talking about just jujitsu or learning sports or whatever it is, it's a science.
Yes, I don't like the way that they use the definition of ecology to describe what is going on with ecological jiu-jitsu. That is my only part, because I believe, not I believe, I know there's only one definition to ecology, and that is the way that organisms interact with their outside environment. Now, with that, this is where you get the split in the argument of, well, you could say that's a human interacting with another human. No. We're talking about bees pollinating flowers, how that interaction connects to the larger picture, right? Ecology is what we call a very strategic view of science, how big ecosystems work. It's if you want to go study like bees, you want to be a wildlife biologist that specializes in bees, right? You can get into the really granular level kind of science there. But to the eco approach credit, and again, as somebody, and now this is where opinions in jiu-jitsu are going to differ, because again, I'm just a purple belt. I'm a hobbyist. I enjoy it. I'm not a specialist like you are, Steve. Like you're an instructor. You're a black belt in what I consider one of the top tier kind of what would you call 10th planet schools in jiu-jitsu, right? But I found, because I had a good baseline understanding of jiu-jitsu already, the eco roles really helped me, because I just got more efficient at doing stuff and seeing things at a very fast pace. Now, Dustin's school is hardcore. There it is. Show up, we're going full speed all the time. And I'll be honest, I got hurt a few times and it kind of turned me off a little bit. But I mean, it's really good. And now that I'm 33 instead of 23, I can't hang with those young guys, but I mean, his students are impressive. So I think there is like credence to that, but at the same time, and again, this is a relative opinion, so you jump in here and tell me where I'm wrong. I think folks that are just starting, like, you need some level of instruction. You can't just have a constraint-based approach when you don't know anything, right? You need to teach them the basic. This is where this leg goes, and this is how you look for a triangle, and this is like, you can't do everything. It's just like, okay, go this way, but we're going to end up here. So, but if you want to go more into the ecology side, I'm more than welcome to. I mean,
that's really, like, I didn't even expect the level that we just got to right there. That was amazing. I really was joking in the beginning.
I mean, I can turn it like, again,
it was real.
Right. So, and again, like, this is stuff I spent years of my life studying, and like, we can go way down the rabbit hole, but I don't think it does any
well, so good. Like, I've gotten to the point now that where I've some of the books that I've got or that I on Audible, whatever, but like, now I'm hearing what some of the other guys are quoting all the time, or what some of the other books that I've bought that are smaller source books or whatever. I've gotten to the source, I guess, of a lot of the information now, it seems like, or at least one of the places that's like a major source kind of book on at least this type of psychology for learning, and again, not for jiu-jitsu stuff. Like, that's to say, like, the jiu-jitsu or sports people have like taken this approach, this learning approach or behavioral science approach, and are applying it to sports.
Yeah.
I think that you're right in saying that when you're a beginner, that people need some level of direction, right? Or instruction or whatever.
A starting point.
Like, because what are we even doing?
Yeah.
Like that, like, you got to have context. And so context is everything. And from what I understand, this approach kind of leads you to. And so when you have a brand new person, you try to give them maybe more constraints or less objectives to try to achieve or not lose. So, for instance, we like a classic thing we used to always do, which is kind of funny though, but like, instead of you and Isaac, we're like, it's okay, I want you guys to go for a body lock, and you're trying to work on getting a body lock on each other. I get you to go ahead and start with like an overhook or an underhook, and then you're trying to get the body lock, and he's trying to prevent you from getting the body lock. Not even trying to get one himself. He's just trying to prevent you from getting one, right? So you're not really worried about getting tripped or thrown, or if your head comes down, you're not getting your neck cranked or all these different things, right? So you really, you give them specific tasks and objectives that they can only operate within. And then that's it. And so then you really start to understand. And then from there, what I try to do some is then, okay, well, then now you try to get the guy that's going for the body lock. If he gets the body lock, he wins. Other player, you could also try to get a body lock. But if you can make him touch the floor with his hand, then you win. Because what happens when somebody's lunging for you with their hands out to try to grab you, if you can step back sprawlish or, you know, whizzer down or whatever the move is, if you have the move, you know, whatever you need to do to make them touch the floor. And then when they pull back to not touch the floor, then you can body lock them. And then from there, we can add in a collar tie of some sort or a leg grab or whatever like that. Just, you know, just keeping it simple on the feet right here, just thinking about that. And then from a body lock, what happens when somebody defends the body lock? What's available to you as they're trying to defend the body lock? Like we say, a lot of times if they shoot their hips back, it's the head. So then you get an objective of a front headlock type thing.
And then how to play in between.
And then once you get the front headlock, what happens? Can you make them touch that floor with their hands? Okay, cool. Now we're going to go here, and you have to make them keep their hands on the floor. Yep. You can't let them take their hands off the floor. If they take their hands off the floor, even if they get to their back, they win.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, whatever, you know, so that's those kinds of things. And then you can start getting really granular with that too, the more that people do or do not know, or with what you want them to understand. You create the games or the scenarios, whatever people want to call them, right? The situational sparring or whatever people want to kind of call it. You really have to structure it though to where it's not one-sided.
Yeah.
And it's an external focus of attention and not an internal focus of attention. You have to worry about what they're doing more about what you do.
Yeah.
Right. When, not how, always. That's the thing that really makes it more important. It's like it's more about when. And I can't give you when. You have to know when.
Feel it.
You have to feel when. And then when against one guy is different. And another thing, one of the main things that you have to worry about for affordances is like you just said earlier, is your age.
Yeah.
At our age now, I can't do the same things I would do when I was not this old. And so I can't tell me to do what I could tell me back in the day to do, or I wouldn't tell a 40-year-old man to try to do what I would tell this 20-year-old young strapping athlete guy that I got to do the same things. Right. So they have to kind of learn what their affordances are better in that live scenario versus a lot of the dead drilling where, it's all completely one-sided and then like in a complete internal like focus of attention of what I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. And as you've heard me say, it's like, man, unless you're just some kind of like monster, jiu-jitsu doesn't work that way where you just like stepping over and like, I'm grabbing his arm and I'm gonna step around and then I'm gonna put. I was like, man, I don't know where that exists at. Like,
right.
So especially when the other guy knows what's up.
Right. So there's levels of it. And if you have a deeper like school, I think you can, play with the variants a lot more with it. But that's really interesting that, I didn't expect this conversation at all. I kind of didn't even think about that in relation to you and like your actual like expertise in the, in this.
So to close that thought out on Josh, as a hobbyist,
mm-hmm.
who never even really had the desire to go that direction of like super competitor and trying to beat the super competitors from what I understood. Like which one do you enjoy more as a hobbyist? Because that's the point of a hobby, right? You're supposed to enjoy the hobby. Which way do you enjoy learning this thing?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm probably not the best person to ask because I'm just kind of like a happy dog showing up to the dog park. Like it could be anything for me,
Yeah.
So the things I find with like initially learning the structured moves, a little boring, right? It's kind of like doing the whole wax on, wax off until you can put stuff together to like understand what's going on. And kind of the level I'm at, I don't think I need to, well, I don't want to sound arrogant here, but I don't think I need to sit there and like have a seminar over an arm bar for half an hour. Like I kind of feel like I get that. I'd rather do something a little more dynamic. Now, not to say there's something I couldn't learn, right? So just for kind of enjoyment's sake. But the frustrating thing I find with eco rounds is that they're tough And the big reason they're tough is because the other person, like Steven said, knows exactly what you're doing. So you only have one avenue of approach. And in my opinion, it can become a little antithetical to what jiu-jitsu is about, right? Because as you understand jiu-jitsu, it's not about strength on strength, right? It's how to maneuver off that strength and exploit it. And so when I'm sitting there, like you used the example of a body lock, if like my whole goal, like now I understand like the larger
goal, the
person,
point. Yeah,
I understand this is just to get better at body locks. Like I get that,
right.
But it's like after a minute of me just keep going back into body lock and then getting my head shoved this way, it's like, all right, the whole purpose of jiu-jitsu is to find another route, right? I'm supposed to exploit the gap in the defense. So, it's, and again, this is way overanalyzed as far as just to answer.
No, yeah, that's why I asked the question. Though.
Yeah, but honestly, for me, man, I just like.
Let me counter the saying though with that is what you're supposed to learn though. You're supposed to learn that you're not going to be able to go up and body lock people like that. That's the lesson to take from that. Oh my gosh, like that is not one of the affordances that I have as a grappler. I have to figure out other avenues to get them down to the ground. And then for me as your instructor or coach or teacher, I have to create games when you're there, especially, or with you and your group to make that work to where now it's like, okay, now while he's trying to get the body lock, I need you guys to try to get to a position of what we call guard. We'll just use guard for a simple, to not get too deep. I need you to get to a guard before he can get you down and past your legs.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I think that's why ecos are so great, right?
Then you can start piecing it together. Let's say you get the small pieces together rather than me telling you this is what I do all the time and you should do it exactly like I do it or you're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that too, what we're talking about instead of, because we kind of just been talking about it as a science, is remembering that it is an art in a way. So like the tiniest nuance of things that I can pick up from anyone to help. I mean, when I went to the Caleb McAllister seminar, I know you guys know him. I went to one, I can't remember when his last one was, but he has one coming up this Saturday out in Newport News. And I learned a little just flick of when somebody's like how to, just a little flick of my shoulder on how to move around when somebody's trying to attempt a knee cut on me. Changed my world. It was a small little move, just okay, see that coming all day. So and that's the art of it. There's so many avenues to really explore and react to. And as you guys know, you'll never fully master this. And that's what kind of keeps us going, right?
It's the puzzle that never actually gets finished.
Yeah, it's like that melting Rubik's Cube on a shirt.
Yeah, this is one of the favorite go-tos.
I think the thing of it for me too is that it really ties into like a lot of the stuff as a whole for jiu-jitsu for me. I went through everything. People, I have the accolades I have. I train, with the people I did and everything like that. But man, when I started coaching, that specifically didn't really matter. The thing that really helped me with the most is I already understood that everybody had a lot of variability. Like there wasn't really like the way wasn't the one way, and stuff like that. And so I don't know. It's really, as a coach now, this has really made jiu-jitsu more interesting too, because I had started getting to the point too, like you were saying, in some ways, not that I knew everything or that I was even the best at everything, but I was just like, there's really not a lot more useful stuff to just add personally, right?
Just
necessarily.
Trying to go down that
better
path
at things personally. But now that I'm trying to help other people get better, I'm exploring this because I want to help be the best coach possible or the best teacher possible. And if there is a better way for people to learn, I want to be on that track as soon as possible, because I've said, and it's been known, that martial arts coaching or fighting coaching and jiu-jitsu stuff, depending on where you are, has definitely been, mid, we'll say at best, in lots of places. And not that I have bad instructors, again, but like it's just been refined so much in the last 20 years or whatever, since people were coming and teaching now, that you need to be working on like scientific approaches to things. It's not just bro science that's gonna like really get the job done.
Okay, perfect segue, because this is my big criticism when it comes to all this eco stuff, at least in the way that it's presented. There's a lot. How can I put this?
Steroids.
No. How can I put this?
There's a lot of that.
Ruffle feathers here. There is a lot
not
of
just in eco gyms, by the way.
There's a lot of language around the eco approach that looks shiny, let's say, and the way that it's talked about, using $8 words and making it seem a lot more attractive than it is. And I can tell you, as somebody who understands all those words, it's just fluff. It's to make it sound flamboyant and, talking about the perception, reality, and blah, 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 blah. It's just, nah. I think that, there's that big debate between those two. And just when you present something to a lot of people and you kind of talk above their heads, it makes it seem like you know what you're talking about. But in reality, not always the truth, right? The best thing to do is just explain things simply, taking complex ideas and explaining them simply. So like when I hear the talk around eco rolls, and the next thing you know, I'm having to pull out a dictionary to see what the guy said. And I'm like, that word doesn't work. Like in these sentences that don't match together, but they sound smart. That's a dangerous combo. And I wish people
found it.
And see that's another part of the being the right kind of person in the room for the people that, you know what I mean? And like, you definitely, there's some of the students that I have that I want, not that I don't want to sit and talk to any of the students, but like some of them would want to sit and nerd out about some of that kind of stuff. Some of them are like, they're really deep into that. They're, but some of them are just like, yeah, I just want to come in and get my training and stuff. I've already sat down and been talked to all day about stuff. I just want to kind of get some work in and not really think about and try to be smart right now. I just want to be told what to do and kind of get through with the, the training session and stuff like that. So you don't really need, like you said, you don't really need all those words to tell somebody, hey, when you feel some pressure on your shoulder right here, that's when you would do that little shoulder roll or whatever to get around them right here. It's just a little bump. You got to figure it out. That's it. Instead of telling them about their proprioception and and it's the haptics of
and this is where I gotta fire my shot. This is where
shoot away.
This is where I gotta fire the shot here, because it's not nerding out. It's using words incorrectly to make yourself sound smart, and that's dangerous. So
I think as a whole, like as a hot take in the jiu-jitsu world, like that is something that there's a lot of guys guilty of that. And that's something I've noticed a lot in like learning and training and teaching in jiu-jitsu in Spanish, is that like sometimes I realize there's words we're using in jiu-jitsu that the word really has no meaning. And so when I try to explain to them, this is what we call that, they're like, that doesn't mean anything in Spanish. I was like, it doesn't mean anything in English either. Like, it just means that.
What's an example of that?
Okay, there's a word that the scrimmage. There's guys that use like the scramble. Like the scramble is another one that doesn't make sense, is when you're trying to explain the like interchange between people, like when they're getting up. Apparently some of the Danaher guys have been using the word scrimmage to describe that moment, and somebody was asking me, they were like, what do they mean by like what does scrimmage mean? And I was like, well, it means scramble. And they just kind of were like, and I was like, a lot of things happening at once.
What do they call it?
As far as they don't really have a way to describe that other than just like chaos. And it's like, it's a chaotic moment in the in-between is what they're trying to describe. And that's what they're just picking a word and saying that in that moment to describe the moment. Which to me, that's where like if we dive off into like what you and I've talked about, Steven, is that like it's funny to watch everybody have these conversations because it's the same conversation over and over again. And you can almost always look at like where everybody's like red-faced and arguing and talking about like, this is the way that things should be done. Somebody's already done it in another way, in another language, or in a different type. Like it's already been done. So like you can just kind of like flip through the like history books and usually find, oh, well, this is another way they found to describe that. Because all we're trying to do is take something that has like an infinite amount of possibilities, but also a finite like amount of possibilities, and narrowing it down to like a couple words.
Yeah, and something that's hyper individualistic and make it
Yeah.
simple and very group friendly, right? It's all very dependent on you first, and also then now who you're fighting against. Every different, is he 6 feet tall or 7 feet tall or 5'4", and they could all, be close to the same weight. Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff that goes into it. I don't know. I'm just trying to learn, like I said, more stuff to be the best version of the teacher and also business owner that, making sure that, like you said, I don't want a bunch of people getting hurt because, that's not good for them. And I actually do care. And then two, honestly, it's bad for business. If people are getting hurt, they're not showing up to class, word gets out that, hey man, you can't go there, you're just going to get hurt. Then people are not going to show up because word of mouth is the main like driver for a lot of like best case, like clients and stuff like that. Even
your giant gyms are word of mouth in that way. And like, when you find out that like it's a
once you
room or a
start
hard
finding out
room,
like that, yeah,
people are
getting
just
hurt,
like, yeah, no, yeah,
people don't mind hard as much as people just don't want to be getting hurt.
yeah.
That's the thing, is like the guys that come in at 6 a.m., they really enjoy this type of training a lot more because they're saying they're really getting their workouts in and different things like that. But I'm keeping it safe, in ways, and trying to structure it from where most of the days we'll either start, some sort of on the feet, and then however that scenario could lead us to the ground, and then, various ground scenarios, maybe up to submissions sometimes, maybe not, but they're often, talked about and worked, but they enjoy being able to get their workout in that little small session and not have to worry about me sitting here waxing poetic for 45 minutes about, something that only I really care about.
Yeah.
And understand,
Right.
So out there in the jiu-jitsu world, there are the new generation, or I think the term that we're using is changing of the guard. Have y'all been watching the grapplers?
I have.
Yeah.
You have? What are your thoughts? This is just like creator me being like, tell me about what you thought about the thing that I've spent all this time in the cave on.
Who?
Josh.
Okay.
So who do you about the changing of the guard? So like, who are we targeting specifically?
So in the title, man, you got us right at the start. So the title, it's something that we've kind of been seeing happening from like behind the cameras for a while. Is I remember being at a combat jiu-jitsu like 2 or 3 years ago, and I watched Dorian, is his last name Oliveira? Is that right? I remember watching him when he was on his come up, and he came out and did a combat jiu-jitsu, and he's 17 years old at the time, and I watched him make grown men black belt MMA fighters, like not chumps, run for their lives. He chased them into the stands a couple of times as he just worked them. To me, the name is that you have what you were talking about, is that like in this training and this like these eco training, you have these athletes that are coming in that already know how to be an athlete.
Yeah.
And now we're in the athletic era.
Yeah. So I've found firsthand, and I can speak to this, and I can give a shout out to 10th Planet Fredericksburg. When I showed up and they're like new blue belts, I mean, I was having to throw everything I had at them just to keep them contained. Now, I'm not the ideal person to talk about that because I'm not a competitor. These guys compete probably 3-4 times a month at most. And it's what I've noticed, at least with the younger guys, it's just and this may be a consequence of me getting older, like I'm talking about. It's just the pace of everything, especially in no gi. If I don't have a gi to grab a collar and start working backwards, I mean, it is absolutely impressive what I've seen just across the board in jiu-jitsu, as far as like guys like you were talking about, you're 17, even younger, that are seemingly surpassing, because this is what I liked about jiu-jitsu in the beginning, is because I thought, well, I mean, it's true. It's like your time on the mat, you know, you have to go through the grind, right? And you'll eventually get to where you want to be. But it seems like these cats have figured out how to speed that grind up. And then they come in and then they just work me over. And I'm like, wait a minute, you've been doing this for 2 years? And you know how, like, I mean, I'm a hobbyist, but I still, like, when I was really training, I was still doing 4 or 5 times a week. I mean, I wasn't like a lazy bum with jiu-jitsu. I wouldn't consider myself a competitor or anything like that. But, you know, I put my time in. And just the way that these guys move now, I don't understand it. They're on something.
I mean, for sure there is that discussion, but then, I mean, so Egghead specifically referred to like the Rafael Ferreira guy that was at the Vegas qualifier, and then like specifically in the grapplers, when you think about it, like look at the guys that were with like Davis Asari or Travis Thomas, or, you know, like when you're watching those guys go through, you watch people like Adam Bradley or one of the Kyles, or like we're talking about like world-class guys that are walking off off the stage after like grappling against a guy.
We need that.
when they would walk off the stage after grappling a guy like Travis, and you watch in their face as they're just like, wait, how, like there's a couple shots that I saw, and I don't even know if they made the actual episode, where like guys like that would like look around the camera and be like, wait, how long has he been training? And they'd be like, yeah, like something like 4 years, and they'd be like, no way.
yeah I mean, that's a great example. I mean, Travis is probably one of the more high profile guys, I would say, but I mean, watching him, I'm going to mess up my season here, but I think it was season 5, right? He was in season 5, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, and like watching him roll with
that was the last Decatur one.
Yeah, and then like watching him roll with Elijah, and it's like duking it out, and impressive. That's all I have to say, man. I don't understand how. I genuinely don't understand how they get good that fast.
They've learned, like, the teaching's better. We've learned, right? I think they're constrained less than we were. We were all very constrained, and you know, you even mentioned it just now too. And I don't know how many of this is true or not, but like the gi, they aren't wearing it.
Yeah.
They're playing.
They never even got the bad habits that they had to unlearn.
And that's good or bad, but just habits in general, right? So it's just like, if you're going to be a gi player, which we all kind of had to be, you know what I mean? And so now as an older player, that's why a lot of guys like the gi when they get older, because they can slow the young athletic guys down and use that as a way to manipulate the role. That's literally it. And that's it.
Would you say that they put the gi on you to control you?
Yeah, they only want you to wear the gi so they can control you. Like, it's literally the point. Yeah. It's like, and I'm not, you know, it's a funny joke because it's true though, and it's not even disrespectful. Like you just said, and all the older guys are saying, it's like, yeah, I want to put that, you know, sweaty, slippery, muscular, handsome guy, put some clothes on and grapple me here so I can hang on to you a little bit more. My wife comes here. Can't see this. Like, now they're out here in little mankinis, just grappling,
taking coconut oil baths, and then
we're
right
here on the mat.
To
it's like, this is no, babe, you can't come to the events anymore.
Oh man. Yeah. And so when you're talking about that, like you're looking, one of the unexpected characters, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but like Kamoi kind of popped out in this season in Grapplers, like in the documentary. The week itself for me is a blur, so like I don't even really remember anything until I start watching the videos and like editing things. I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen. But at the beginning of the week, you see him talking with Brandon in the very first episode, and Brandon's talking about like the first season Kamoi was there. And then he's talking about how like that like warmed Kamoi's heart, and Kamoi's heart grew like a billion sizes, and now he's like one of the like endeared fan favorites. And then he starts talking in the back, and there's multiple like little cutaway scenes, or little throwaway scenes where he's like, you cut to Kamoi, and Kamoi's just talking about the fact he's like, yo, these kids, like, this is wild. This is wild. He's sitting there. He's trying to convince people to sit down. He's trying to talk sense into Davis Asari after the ankle pop. Like, it's wild because, like I said, you're seeing these kids come in that are just hardwired for grappling, and it's crazy to me.
Yeah, the future is now, old man. Right?
They ain't been hurt yet.
It feels that way.
Yeah,
it feels that way.
That's just part of it. I mean, I guess that's just a natural evolution to, like, honestly, everything. So it's just, I was thinking about this before we got on here. You know, what is going to nerf no-gi jiu-jitsu? I'm sure it's coming. Something will.
As far as like when you say nerf, like when you start trying to pad it and try to make the rules.
No. I mean, something will come along that's better.
Okay. When it goes,
what that is.
What do you mean?
What that is? Any martial art that comes, like, there'll be some better combination of a martial art that will bloom out of this, right?
So
unless
I got a question.
Striking to it. That's the only thing.
Yeah, and like as far as which you already see that in like things in rule sets like combat jiu-jitsu, right? Where like there's evolutions of the in between of the thing, but like I feel like, so I've been on this point for a lot recently, is that like jiu-jitsu is a marketing thing. It's grappling has always existed. There's always been combat, and there's always been some form of how to solve two human beings trying to tear each other apart.
Sure, and it was just improved, right?
Right. And so it's like, I guess to like reiterate or re-ask or be on the same page as like what you're asking, it's like, it's more of like, how are we going to try to sell it to each other next?
Well, so I look for specific examples of like huge, you can't call them technological breakthroughs because it's not an increase in technology, but it's an increase in moves, right? So think of the buggy choke.
Okay.
Right? Like when that came along, that was like, okay, so you're not perfectly safe when you're in side control, right? Things like that. I mean, I think you could probably argue, the whole push for, the whole ignoring 50% of the body, right? Change jiu-jitsu in a way. I'm just kind of wondering, like, what's going to be the next thing, what somebody's going to find. I mean, like, even as stuff as, there's a guy in my gym that does those Hindula teams, I mean, that's becoming more and more common, in at least where I am. I mean, I know that's still a very advanced kind of move, but it's just who's going to figure something out next that changes it, right?
Steven, do you have a take on that?
I don't know, man. I think, we've seen, I guess, throughout time, really the only thing that's going to, if we're doing it for sport, and not thinking about fighting, and if we're thinking about fighting, is it sport fighting or not? That change, again, all that kind of stuff.
Sure,
taking away striking, just grappling. The only things that are really going to make any more like innovations are going to be probably rules, or again attire, maybe, or arena, like that we're using. Like for instance the
grappling surface.
Yeah, where we're doing it at. Is it going to be like in a cage? Like people have grappled in a cage. People grapple on flat mats. People grapple on the stage. We've had the pit. We got the PGF with the couches. Like those are the kinds of things that are going to start doing more of the things. And man, I saw this show and it's a game that I play with my kids. I thought I made it up. In like kids program, I mean to say, but you like on the Korean show, like 1 versus 100 or whatever it is, the big physical 100 or whatever it is on Netflix. You get a big exercise ball and you put it there, and you try to, whoever has it at the end of the timer wins. Whoever's like holding the ball. And so they can like grab you, like chokes are live. They're breaking you down. They're basically fighting for control of this ball. and they're grappling or whatever, you know, the whole time. And so some people just put the ball down and start grappling.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
until it gets close to the end and they try to get control of the thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like whatever, like Isaac said, what's going to make it, I think it's going to be more the rules. And I think we didn't see buggy chokes, not because everybody knew they were completely safe in side control, but because you weren't ever allowed to really go to side control and just stay there long enough to dig it out like that, because side control, you're losing. You'd already given up points most of the time. And so,
Sure.
so you couldn't really sit there long enough to come up with that plan. You know what I mean? In a
But
way.
that's still an evolution. Okay, so I mean, you guys are the perfect testament to this because you're in a whole system that revolutionized jiu-jitsu. Think of all the moves that are 10th Planet specific, right? I just feel like eventually, down the road,
they're all in high school wrestling books.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Is
like
it's all
New
just
Jersey
recreated.
and all that stuff.
Eddie will tell you a lot of the stuff, a lot of the old stuff, like a lot of the newer, I guess if you want to say stuff, but a lot of the twister and a lot of the stuff that like that, especially
Old wrestling moves.
They're just old wrestling moves.
Okay, well maybe I see this. Maybe I'm just ignorant on it.
And
But I
then
mean, it seemed like
it's just the rules when you want to pin
Yeah.
somebody. That's why all those weird catch rules work, because the guy's going to stay bellied out. That's why you can cripple or crossface him, because he can't go to his back. But if he can go to his back, you'll never get one of those weird ass cross faces on a guy in jiu-jitsu, because he'll never sit there and like belly out
let
so you can't turn it.
Yeah.
They don't do that in real wrestling because you can't choke people or you can't really try to break their leg, because then that's potentially dangerous, so they'll stop it. But in catch, all those weird, like brutal things people talk about, they exist because all you got to do is hurt them to turn them, or I'll just keep hurting you until you turn.
Yeah.
So like the rules dictate the fight literally in everything that we're doing. And as soon as you can add like a spear or whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
or is there like a big post in the middle of the cage now? And so it's like a cylinder with like a pole in the middle of it. Like, how does that change the fight now?
Yeah.
Instead of just like an open cage, or
Sure.
in a pit now.
Yeah.
Let's do it in a skateboard like bowl.
There's a lion.
Let's do it in a skateboard bowl with people sitting around the top of the bowl on like risers looking down into it.
Okay, but to go back to ecology, right? You're changing the environment.
But that's what it all matters, right? That's how.
Right.
That's what.
I'm agreeing with you.
Like that's to say, like that's why they're calling it that, though. Too is like the environment that we're doing this activity in is it dictates our behavior. The rules dictate our behavior. What we agree and don't agree to do legally, you know, that dictates behavior a lot more too. Yeah. So like I think that's where a lot of that is coming from, but I can definitely see where someone who's actually educated in it would be perturbed, so to say.
Well, it's just I would use a different word. To go back to everything, I like the use of constraint based, game.
Yeah, constraint, and I think I've heard other people say that's actually the truer definition would be to say constraint based instead of ecological based.
It just sounds smart, right?
Right. I think that's the thing. So
$8 words. I saw Steven's face when you said $8 words, and he was like, $8 words.
String a few of those together, hell.
Hell, you got a $32.50. Where'd you get 50 cents?
Let's go. And so that other kind of segues into the thing I was noticing is like this was the day, and I had forgotten, kind of like you said about it. This episode kind of talked and was around the day of where everybody was kind of arguing about the rules a lot. And like when the restarts and the stalling and not stalling and the shot clock, and they were just really, really, really trying to nitpick us that day a lot on what was it. People were barking from the side. That was like, to me, was the worst day of the week as far as like overall experience in the room. It was really just like, it felt really disjointed. I remember, and there wasn't a lot of finishes, if I remember correctly, on that day, but there was a lot of like, just arguing about elbow placement and like his arm's not locked out. And then why is that stalling? Because I reached halfway and like swiped at his leg one time. And it's like, because you're not really doing the thing, you're trying to fake it and act like you're doing the thing. That's what we're trying to avoid with that. It's like a shot clock is like in basketball. Your shot has to hit the rim to reset the shot clock. You can't just fucking throw a ball up and then be like, oh, reset it and get it again. You have to like take a meaningful like attempt at it and stuff. So they're like, that was a really, really tough day, I remember. And so seeing the behind I didn't get to go to the house that night and be part of that rules meeting or whatever. I was pretty tired, so I usually just kind of go crash out after the shows because I've spent most of my good mental energy.
Yeah, that was like 2 a.m. When that
yeah,
video,
right.
like,
So usually
like
I'm
when
way
you see me
asleep by
sitting
that
on the
point.
floor
Yeah.
and like they're doing jujitsu and we're like talking about, well, this is that and this should be. That was 2 a.m. after
I would
a
have been there if I
9-hour
would
day.
like sat there long enough to get the memo that it was happening, but I was already asleep before they decided to do it. I think
You're also the talent, sir. This is where
I
you
know.
also
I
have
just
to
care
remember
about the
you're the
rules, though.
talent. We need you to get
yeah.
your rest. We got to get
No,
your
for
voice,
sure,
get
and I
your
know that.
tea.
I know that, but I like the game, so I like to be there when all the rules and stuff are being discussed and talked about, just so I can also know what's going on. So
Well,
that was like
and
a big day for that too.
Well, and like that day and like that episode was a really good example that we've kind of from the inside been noticing where like people have been getting a little bit upset with the referee thing and I will give our referees like one big like shout out about the fact that like look, man, I love the fighters and I love the guys and I've been on that side of the tape and I understand that like a rules meeting is annoying and usually nobody knows what they're talking about and all this. The rules meeting I've been filming and watching and getting it like documented for since season 2. And for one, it's the most detailed rules meeting you'll ever go to. 2, fighters notoriously A, don't show up to it, B, don't pay attention, and C, definitely if there's a rule book, which by the way, we have a rule book, they don't read it. And so they try to catch these guys in like technicalities of like, well, you said this and this. It's like we were talking about like using words to like sound smart. I think that our guys have done a really, really good job of like documenting out the rules, and it's like there's every single thing.
There's
that's
hundreds
like,
of hours of work collectively, maybe thousands of hours of work collectively on just trying to get the rules right in the last year.
Yeah,
Like there's been tens of us, meetings or for hours at a time trying to meet and with
and he
on purpose to have different perspectives. That way it's not just one idea pigeonholing kind of everything. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And different things that we can really like nail down the language with that. So yeah, I definitely good shout out to the referees because they're definitely they're trying, man. They really are.
And my other side of that point is both of you guys are other sports in some degree. Like you understand them and see them, and everybody out there has watched sports. In what sport? And like I said, love you, Heath. You've done an amazing job of being a referee. But in what sport does anybody love the referees? Because there's always the 49% that are upset about the call. It's always against you when you lose, and it's always great when you don't. And so it's like, to be honest, as somebody who's been part of this growth and seeing us try to go towards a sport and become a sport, I enjoy that little bit of real sportism of the fact that like, see, it's an actual sport. As a martial artist and as a purist, I understand where it's like, all right, this is frustrating, guys. Let's quit arguing over rules. But that's kind of what got us here, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess like you got to have a little bit of like subjectivity there, and let them. There's got to be like everything's not cut and dry.
Yeah.
That in competition, there's gray area because of rules, and then what we found is the more that you try to make a rule about something, you got to really look at what the ripple effects of that rule are. What does that mean for others? And then okay, well, then if we make that a rule, then that's really going to make other rules have to exist. So we don't really need to make that a rule. We got to kind of just make rules that make that not possible to even happen first. Like, and that's, oh yeah, we do have that. Actually, we talked about it in section 1A right here. This covers that 1 hour conversation we just had. So yeah, so like there's just a lot of that kind of refinement of it too, and just like making sure the ideas, are good. But definitely like how you see it and how I see it are very different. Sometimes eyewitness testimony is like super unreliable. One of the things with baseball right now, the pitch, the challenges or whatever right now, it's kind of crazy how you see some of it. Some of them have been pretty good, some of them have been pretty bad, but some of them are challenging these things, and like the variance was like less than an inch if you looked at what they're like saying the strike zone was, and somebody's throwing a rock at you at 100 miles an hour and you're off by less than an inch of variance or whatever. Ooh, that's kind of tough to be on
That's
somebody's
the
ass about
definition
that.
of splitting hairs, is it not?
That's tough, right?
I remember the first time I saw a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, and I was like,
Yeah,
I'm
I've
done.
stood in some now a couple times. That's one of the things I've really done too since Thomas, my son's gotten back in or gotten into it at all. Is like put myself in a lot of those kinds of scenarios that they are in, like, you know, getting out in the outfield and somebody hitting you a fly ball, and like for the first time in 30 years, I looked like a freaking bumbling idiot the first like several reps trying to figure out the depth perception. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, this is easy, son. Let me show you how to do this. And it was like, oh my God, I just sprinted over there and
Ball fell
hold on. Give me a second.
You want me to throw it back?
Yeah. I just did 5 times in a row. And but we're sitting there telling them to, come on, go again. Or, we're in the pitching machine and, it'll give you 15 balls, for the one like round or whatever. And so he'll go through it, it's like, all right, cool, let's do another one. And, he'd be like, oh, I'm tired, and it's like, what? And I was like, all right, I'll go in there and do something. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like 15 good quality swings. Yeah, you might need a little breather for a second, just to be coherent. And still, I was like, all right, my bad, dude.
Yeah.
So
Get a Gatorade.
Yeah, you don't really know, and one thing that happens too for sure as we get older is our perception gets less solid and reliable too. So they see a little bit better than we do typically.
Your brain's ignoring a lot in the everyday.
It wants you to stay okay. It's like, hey, you're all right, you're fine, that's perfect, you see perfectly, don't worry about that big halo around the light that you're looking at. That's normal.
That's normal.
Everybody sees that.
So speaking of evolutions and things and whatnot, in the last segment I had for us marked down is the PGF World Rankings. You boys got any opinions on the rankings?
Have you seen that, Josh?
I don't
throw it up
think
on the screen here.
Is it just out of everybody?
It's all time.
All time. Yeah. I'll pull it up on the screen here for you guys.
I think there's a million different ways you can cut it. It just depends on.
Well, so Brendan and ChatGPT came up with a formula that gives everyone a XP, basically, that can change through time, based on.
All right, so that's kind of what I expected, but here's my.
Can y'all see this on your screen?
I have it pulled up on my phone.
I kind of assumed Ryan would be the top guy.
Number one, yeah.
But I feel like you have to acknowledge the person that's won the most seasons, and that's Elijah, right?
But he's lost a lot more.
Yeah.
How many Super Bowls did Tom Brady lose? I just.
Oof. Okay.
How many did he lose?
I have no idea. I felt like that was a good hot take, though.
Well, I think it's just about how many you win. I don't think anything else really matters.
Well, Hunter went undefeated and beat Elijah.
That's true, but
Ryan
again,
also went undefeated.
Put it this way: how many World Series have the Yankees been in versus how many they won, right? I mean, I assume they've been in way many World Series than the 28 wins they have, 27 wins they have. That's just my opinion. I'm not.
No, that's it's a good take. And like I have a take too. Keep scrolling down. You can tell me what you think.
But I definitely agree that Ryan's probably the best grappler. Like if you put all those guys together, it made him do it again. So.
Well, it's an XP thing, right? So if you beat higher ranked people, you'll get a higher score. Sure. So like if somebody's up and you beat them, then you'll go up. If they're down and you lose to them, then you'll go pretty far down. Also, it takes into account qualifier matches. And so some of these people have only done qualifiers and have a rating based on only qualifiers. But qualifier matches, wins are weighed much lower, but losses are weighed a lot heavier if you win or lose in a qualifier. Regular season matches are rated higher for wins. The losses are rated less than qualifiers. Playoffs are rated higher.
Isaac, is
then,
that just on their website?
It's on their website.
It's on their website. If
Yeah.
you go to pgf.world, and then you just go to the rankings. It's
Okay, yeah. Let me look at them on my computer because they're
look at that for a second here, and you tell me how a guy who's only been in qualifiers could be ranked ahead of your friend here, your buddy.
I'm scrolling through the explanation for the people on the.
And I have Brandon's explanation for it too, and so
Okay.
I'm okay with what
everybody's
he's explaining for that. But it's still, I'm gonna gripe about that for TV.
So
Man, there's
we
been
find
that many athletes. Holy cow! I guess
Right.
it adds up.
Right, all time, right? Good old number 340.
Isaac, you're in here twice.
Hearts and minds.
How am I in there twice?
No, you're not.
No.
I just controlled F Isaac.
Wait, am I really all the way down there?
Hey, you're not at the bottom though.
Hey.
You're not last.
Hey, look at that. Oof.
That's cool. I mean, I really think you guys have something special. I think this will be the way. I hope.
No, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting as far as how the whole thing has come together, how it's grown. Like we've looked into, so many different windows of like the different promotions and the different ways that things are growing, and every single one has brought something to the table. But being a part of the PGF and like watching how it's like grown into what it is, it's like, it's one of the first things I've ever experienced where like you were sitting in the room when everybody talked about the concept, and then like you watch the concept and you're like, oh damn, it worked. Oh wow. Like this is the thing. Like we talked about this. Like, oh, this is cool. Like it's pretty wild. And like I would imagine that you've probably had a little bit of that experience with the Daily Triangle and like kind of how that's evolved and like.
Yeah, it's crazy when you stick with something and you just got to keep hammering it.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu was my first lesson in that, honestly. Like when I looked around in jiu-jitsu and I was like, oh, it's a stick around game.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly but surely I figured out, I was like, oh, life is that. Is that like when you meet people that are like in some extraordinary position or things like that, like 98% of the time it's because they stuck around and stuck out all the like hard stuff that it took to get there.
Yeah. So
it's been really cool watching you like have that success and like have all those things and have all the different like growth that you've had. Is there anything that you want to plug? There's new things that you have going. You mentioned briefly in the beginning some of the investment stuff that y'all are doing. Like, you want to talk about that real quick, and then we can kind of close out?
Sure. Well, I'm not big of a plug guy. I kind of believe, we've talked about this as far as branding and marketing. I'm just kind of a believer in
I'll do it for you.
If you have a good product, it kind of speaks for itself. But yes, that's kind of because everything we do, we extract a lot of data. Like that's probably been the most advantageous thing that I've been doing because we have the resources to kind of chase where there are problems in jiu-jitsu. So we're kind of like, we see an issue here. Let's see how this works. We see an issue here. Sometimes it doesn't work. And, we're fortunate enough to be able to just be like, nah, all right, let's try something else. But yeah, the next thing that we're moving into is just helping gyms with their administrative controls because we see, some holes there and how we could be of benefit. So that's where we're moving into next. And then at the same time, we are offering our investment packages because a lot of gyms, when they kind of look to expand or if they're doing well and wanting to expand, I don't know if you guys are familiar with how expensive or how crazy interest rates are on like small business loans, where you kind of get raked over the coals instead of, so it's just something else that we're looking to offer to kind of help people out. So
that's super cool, man. And like feeding back into the community and like the whole aspect, like that's really cool. Plus, I'm really glad that you're over there with a 10th Planet crew now, because like now we can corrupt you.
This is my first experience, so my baseline is I don't know if it's skewed or not, but Dustin is an excellent coach. He is a retired Marine, so we fit in together. But he, you would never expect it. He doesn't look anything like me. He's got long hair and a bunch of tattoos, kind of like you do. And the gym, they just put a pit in his gym, which is pretty cool. We didn't get to talk about all that stuff, but yeah, it's definitely different, but it's been a good time. I really enjoy it.
That's cool, man. Well, we got a couple different things going on in Irons in the Fire, things going on, announcements that I don't think are public yet. Steven, do you have anything you're plugging right this second?
Kevin Sherrill, you walking around the PGF, strutting like you're handsome, like you're changing the game, being ranked higher than me. Who do you think you are? Who do you think gave you the power to be even called handsome? Got that dollar store haircut out there, trying to flip it around to the fans. Don't nobody want to see that. What they want to see is you and me lined up, man to man, on the PGF stage. What do you say, Kevin? Titles on the line. Bring your crew. We're ready. That's all I got to say.
So that's your official call out of handsome Kevin Sherrill. Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
As long as I have no part of that.
I made sure to let him have the stage. But to close that out, if you want any more information on things that are going on, they can find everybody can find you the Daily Triangle on Instagram. You got thedailytriangle.com.
Yeah, our website, and you can always contact me through our website. That's the best.
Super cool. I'm glad you came on today, my man.
Thanks for the invite, guys.
That took a lot longer to end than I thought, but good job.
Adios, everybody.